criminals rule the city. The only weapon that can stop them needs a driver.
A man without a memory can be supplied with one. With a little cosmetic fine-tuning, he'll be our driver.
Let's initiate changeover.
3, 2, 1, activate.
The most wanted man on wheels is about to change sides. Now, against a corrupt system, a lone fight for justice. Viper is taking back the streets.
All right, everybody, welcome to Full Throttle Podcast. This episode will be discussing Viper, the short-lived syndicated TV show. I'm your host, Michael, my co-host, the co-creator of this show. What's up, Ron?
Not much, man.
All right.
Doing fine.
So this one's going to be a little shorter. We were going to originally pair this with Knight Rider, but we realized that we're going to be discussing Knight Rider for a very long time, so we decided to push this off to the side. So it's going to be like more of a mini-sode, because there's not that much to discuss about it. Viper, did you originally watch this when it was on NBC?
Yeah.
I think most
There was
of us,
no way I was going to miss that one.
Yeah, I think most of us, it was right that perfect age when we're like 15, 16 years old. And this premiered, and we're like watching the trailers and seeing all, like, this is one of the first shows to really utilize CGI effects. Most of the time it was like
Right.
just old school opticals and, like miniatures and stuff like that. We're like, oh my god, they got this on television now?
Let me explain some of the scenes that. In some places, especially with the morphing of the car and whatever, they nailed the CGI. But some of the other CGI it felt like something I could have done on my own computer.
Yeah,
you know?
well, it was at a time when, budgets for TV shows were like $1 million maximum. And
Right.
it was still a relatively new idea. I think Terminator 2 is the
Yes.
first one to really do the morphing effects. But if you watch this and, what am I thinking of? Sequest premiered around the same time on NBC. And you look at Sequest, which is a highly underrated TV show.
Yes.
The special effects are seriously dated. Most of these TV shows just couldn't afford to have film quality effects.
No.
But
I'll give them
credit
that.
for trying, yeah.
It didn't keep me. It didn't stop me from watching it. And I love the show. So
Now, this is from Paul DeMeo and Danny Bilson. They are the creators of the Flash TV show from 1990 that I love so much, and they also created The Sentinel. I don't know if you remember any of those.
oh yeah, I remember the Sentinel.
And they had done some low-budget movies, which were a lot of fun. They did Trancers. Do you remember that series?
Yeah.
They had Trancers, and I want to say, there's another. Oh, The Rocketeer. They did The Rocketeer for Disney.
Really.
Yeah, so they brought a lot of mythos to Viper. Viper could have been a generic action show, which is the way a lot of these syndicated TV shows were. Is it didn't even really matter about the plot. It's just as long as they had action every 10 minutes and they had good characters, that was all that mattered. But they knew that this is more sci-fi bent, and sci-fi fans want a world. You want to build this universe that it exists in.
You lost me. Sorry.
What? Because you couldn't hear me?
Dead silence. Dead silence.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. No, but I just, this is during a time period where a lot of I should say, everybody, it was on for 13 episodes on NBC, and then it got canceled, but it did very, very well internationally. For some reason, it's huge in Germany. I have no idea why. They love them. They love Viper and Hasselhoff. That's what they like in Germany. And Lederhosen. So it did well internationally, and I think it started being rerun on Sci-Fi Channel when it, its first couple years, and so they decided to bring it back in syndication. Now, you and I, for some reason, we used to watch a lot of these syndicated TV shows, especially like Hercules and Xena, that kind of stuff we watched a lot of.
Hercules.
But most of the action-oriented ones were pretty generic, and you could watch one episode and never care again. But, like, the sci-fi stuff, like, Star Trek was syndicated, Babylon 5 was syndicated. The ones more sci-fi bent, I think, took more care into creating a world.
Yeah. It's a Babylon's one I just recently got into. I don't know why it took me so... I'm a big sci-fi fan. I'm not sure why I never jumped on the bandwagon with that one, but...
Yeah, I've only seen the first season.
Awesome show. Yeah.
That's
I'm only on the second season.
That's another one that started with early CGI effects, and it's really, really dated because you can almost see like the texture. It's almost like you can see the bits and pieces, the 010101. But it's a good show when it comes to plot and world building.
Definitely.
So this is a straight up Canadian show. This is one of the few Canadian shows to be picked up by a major network. I think the only two were this and Due South, which, if you've never seen Due South, seriously, go find it.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
You've never heard Due South? Oh my God! I gotta send you some. There's some. I think the episodes are up on YouTube. Just like Viper, all these episodes are up on YouTube. The only problem is, for me, they were cut up. Like it was like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 for every episode. So you'd watch a 15-minute clip and go to the next one. But this series is coming out from VEI, which is a Canadian company, but they release them in America for the same price, and it's supposed to be the complete series.
Yes, I do know that show. Sorry, Due South. He's a Mountie.
Right.
Gotcha.
In Chicago.
Gotcha. Well, we're good.
So sadly, Viper was canceled after 13 episodes. Like I said, it got renewed for syndication. But here's the weird thing: is they fired almost everybody.
Right. Let's start from scratch.
Yeah. So Joe Napoli is the only actor to stay in the entire series. I actually like the original cast better than the syndicated cast. I don't know how you feel about it.
I'm about the same way myself.
I'm
glad they kept Frank. Frankie, if they'd have gotten rid of Frankie, I probably would have had to stop watching.
Yeah, he's a fun character, but I think there's a lot of gravitas that Dorian Harewood brings to the series. He's one of the only ones that in here is like a known actor. Like, he did a ton of stuff throughout the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
He did a lot of voice work, too. If you look at some animated shows during the 90s, he was in a lot of them.
I find there's a lot of people like that. It's like that's how they keep busy in the off time. They go to animation and voiceovers.
Yeah. So the original actor, the main star, James Caffrey, he was let go, but then brought back for the last season. So I can't remember who the actor is that stepped in between 2 and 3. Why can't I remember this? My brain is pudding.
2 and 3. That would have been
Cakey.
Jeff
Cakey.
Cakey.
I want to say Cakey and not cocky. You know, they look very similar. They're not the same character, but they look almost like the same person. This is weird, like bland Canadian white guys in their 30s.
I'm gonna have to say I'm a bigger fan of McCaffrey myself, but
yeah, the original guy, he had a lot more edge to him. So basically, if you've never seen the show, it takes place in like the not too distant future. Basically, it's like tomorrow is I think what they say in the opening credits. So it's still relatable to our world, where it's not overwhelmed with like, oh, this new gadget, these effects. You know, sometimes when you watch sci-fi shows and it's so obsessed with whatever the next level is that you can't connect to it, like you have no relate to it.
Yeah.
And
this is set.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, this is supposed to be set in the near future too. That kind of helped it.
Yeah, and it's in a big city. I can't remember. Is this actually in a legitimate city or a made-up city? I feel like this
made up city.
I was gonna say it
Metro City is.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it looks like Chicago. It looks like that kind of city, but I think it was shot in Toronto and then later shot in Vancouver. But it's supposed to be like almost like a comic book is what it feels like. The city's being taken over by crime, and they take a guy who's actually on the bad side and make him good. You know, it takes a criminal to catch a criminal, and you know he gets this awesome vehicle, this Viper, which at the time I had never heard of, and my mind was blown when I saw it. It's still amazing vehicle, and I don't know much about the Viper though. Could you clue me in on what's up with the Viper?
The Viper. The Viper. Well, this was designed by none other than Unique Movie Cars of Las Vegas. We've talked about these guys before in a few of our other episodes. They did the Fall Guy, A-Team, Hardcastle McCormick's cars, Knight Rider, and Nash Bridges, to name a few. So, needless to say, they've been around for a while, and they seem to be like the go-to guys out there. There were 2 cars used. There was a 94. It was a flame red RT10 Viper Roadster, and I think it was a 96 cobalt blue metallic Viper GTS used in the final season. One interesting note is that, like a lot of the cars that were designed for a movie, this car was designed by Chrysler. That may sound like, yeah, duh, it's a Viper, duh, but this is the first year. This movie or this TV show was essentially created in mind to what's the word I want to use? It's a big promotion for the Viper because this was the first year that it came out. It's essentially a big commercial.
Best commercial ever.
That's right. But unfortunately, it didn't take off. It's because, well, we got 4 seasons out of it eventually. But anyway, that being said. When they were asked to put this car together, they had 40 days, I think they said, 40 days to come up with 14 principal cars and 200 non-principal cars for the show. They purchased 14 cars from Chrysler, and then they proceeded to tear them all down.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess you got. Well, this is a pretty. I don't know what they were going for price-wise. I should have looked that up, but anyway. But the Defender itself, they used these 14 cars, they stripped them down, and then they rebuilt them in the ways that they needed for the various different scenes. Obviously, it's what they always do. Some cutaway where half the car's there, and but the Defender itself was a whole new car. I don't know if they used an actual Dodge Viper chassis or not, but they had to stretch it an extra 2 feet to fit in all those gadgets. And we'll get to the gadgets here in a minute. There's a whole fancy song list of those. But a cool note is the Viper itself, when it first came out, did not have side windows.
Huh.
No side windows, no air conditioning.
Oh my
This
god,
was a
that
very,
is so warm. Woo.
right? Very Spartan car altogether. I think it had said something about having lumbar support in the back, but beyond that, this thing was just a pure, visceral, put you in your seat, power car, and apparently got a little squirrely on the high end once you got it up to speed. So if you didn't know what you were doing, you could easily wrap that thing around a tree. But that's what I love. When they put these in video games, that was the only car that you get in there and you chomp on the gas and it would just sit there and spin while everybody else took off, you know. But anyway, back to the task at hand. The 94 RT10 was what they were used for the first 3 seasons, and it had a V10 based on Chrysler's LA V8. And this V10, now this is actual specs. This is not the car they actually used, because if I remember correctly, the engine that was, they changed out some of the engines depending on their need. So if I remember reading somewhere, like the last remaining of the 14 vehicles has a V8 in it. I think it was on the Mecum website when it was up for auction. But the actual car housed a V10 that was actually designed by Lamborghini, who was then owned by Chrysler, who is now owned by VW of all companies.
Did not expect that answer. I did not expect that. I know nothing about cars, people. I'm going to tell you that right now.
All right, no, I'm not putting down VW by any means. They've got some awesome vehicles out there, but it just seems odd. But anyway, that Lamborghini's anyway. Back to the task at hand. So this particular engine, the V10 actual engine, was 488 cubic inches, had a bore and stroke of 4 to 3.88, and a red line of 6,000 RPM. It had 400 brake horsepower and 460 foot-pounds of torque. It could go from 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. So like I said, put you in your seat, melt your face off.
Press you against the seat, flatten you, put you right in the back seat.
Well, there is no back seat. It would make a back seat.
All right, in the trunk. Is there a trunk?
Trunk.
You're sitting on the sidewalk. You're outside. Go, where's my car?
That's right. Where's my car?
Hey, Shrek, where's my car?
Judging by how squirrely, maybe that's why it always got squirrely at high speeds, because there's nobody behind the freaking wheel.
I lost another one,
All
sir.
I'm sorry. You realize you're driving without a car? So,
You know, it's like those old cartoons where the car goes and you're still sitting there in midair. Your hands are on an imaginary wheel and you're just kind of hovering. You look down, you blink a couple of times, like, huh, that's funny. Oh,
oh, not again. Oh boy. All right, so in 1996, when they the 4th season, they, spoiler alert, had to replace the car because the original was destroyed.
Was it the bad kit? Was it, what was the car? Did the car come in and destroy Viper?
I think that's exactly what happened. Well, actually, you're very similar, eerily similar as to why that happened. If you want me to touch on that, I can.
No, it's okay. I have barely touched upon season 4. I gotta finish it up.
All right. Well, we'll just leave that alone and let everyone else watch it, figure it out for themselves. We'll just say the evil comes in. Anyway.
Twirling his robotic mustache, hologram mustache. I'll save you, Nell.
That's the wrong Mountie.
I'll save you, Viper.
Okay, so where was I, man? I lost myself. My car took off without me.
I just start every time you
96.
get lost. Every time you get lost, you just do like a narration of a trailer. In a world where Ron doesn't know where we are in the parks, Antonio Banderas and Isabella Rossellini are Viper.
And he's back. Okay, so I think 96 is when they started changing the overall design of the body, and I think I remember, don't quote this percentage, I'm going to just throw 70% out there. It might be a different number, but it was a large part of the car had changed over. So this was a changeover design year. And the RT10 for 1996 gave it an extra 15 horsepower, and it bumped up the torque to about 488 foot-pounds. Now, this is also the year they actually finally started, they put out a coupe version. I mean, all that freaking power, and it was an open-top car. It's kind of screwy.
Yeah.
But anyway, they finally brought the GTS coupe option in here, and it had the V10, but it increased it up to 450 horse, so it kind of needed that hardtop. As far as torque numbers go, I do have that. It's 488 foot-pounds of torque now, so definitely melt your face off. Now, everybody take a deep breath.
My face!
Everybody take a deep breath and sing along with me.
Tell me, doctor, where are we going this time? Is that what we're gonna sing? I just picked
this is the long list of gadgets.
Oh,
we'll
okay.
sing that next week. All right. Season 1. 4-wheel drive mode with inflatable tires that go off-road, hologram projector, reconnaissance probe, retractable battering rams, twin weapon pods on either side that house a static pulse EMP emitter, missiles, grapple hook launcher, also rear-mounted grapple launcher. And of course it was what?
The Graveler Dobbler.
It had armor plating. Take a deep breath now. Season 2 introduced a turbine booster, and I must say, come on, Kit had that right out of the package.
Yes. Okay.
So,
Before you go any further into this, let me say this: there are some gadgets. Clearly, Viper feels like an updated version of Knight Rider. But if you look at the remake, the 2009 series of Knight Rider, clearly stole everything from this.
Viper, yes.
Yeah, I mean, Viper.
I totally 100% agree.
Yeah, and it's much worse, much worse than Viper. I will say, if you get it in mind to watch the newer Knight Rider show, watch the pilot movie, kick yourself in the nuts, and go back to watching Viper. Less painful.
Unless you're a really diehard Mustang fan, and then, well, if you're dyed-in-the-wool Ford fan as opposed to, and kick the Chrysler guys to the curb kind of guy, then you can go that direction. But
I will never understand the war. And every time I see a Calvin, a little Calvin thing peeing on the Chrysler, the Dodge, I'm like, they're both
right.
What is wrong with you? They're both vehicles. I'm not part of that thing though, where it's like, oh, Cubs or White Sox, Dodgers or Giants, or one party against another, and I'm just like, it's just stop it. Just stop. Enjoy both or hate both.
I have to say White Sox. Sorry, man.
No, the Cubs are stomping you in the ground this year. I lied. I'm all about the Cubs.
I know, but I'm not a fair weather fan either. So, unfortunately, I've been tromped on for quite a few years now. But anyway, I digress.
You've seen me get an ulcer over the Cubs. As much as the Cubs stress me out every single year, I'm like, they're going to do it, aren't they? Please tell me they're going to do it. And I'll watch to the end of the season. It's like, why did I waste a whole year?
Why did he die, Doctor? I think it was Cubs fanitis.
It was. His heart exploded. Either way, if they win,
I'm sorry, Cubby fans.
If they win, my heart swells up and it explodes. If they lose, it shrivels up into dust and fades away.
It's like the Grinch. His heart swelled 3 times his size. Anyway.
And they had to take him to the hospital immediately because it was bursting through his chest.
Right?
The Grinch is dead! Love killed him!
Well, there's better ways to die, or worse ways to die, I mean.
Well, okay, back to season 2, as I've rudely interrupted you.
All right, let me have a voice back. Take a deep breath. All right, we left off at turbine booster. Okay, has a voice amplifier. I have no idea what that is, other than probably a PA system.
Well,
but
later he would use it in Scream. Do you like scary movies?
Right. I think it's just another thing to add to the list and make it look, look at all the gadgets he has.
How many did you use? One? Just one?
One. It's funny. We'll get to that in a second.
How much money, the James Bond movies, how much money do they spend on those gadgets that he uses once?
Once, exactly. Q hated him.
I know. He's like, what'd you do with it? I don't know. It's out there in the river with the crocodiles. I don't know. That thing cost $2 million.
Well, that's why they had to replace Q, because he had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Every time he brought home nothing. Anyway, all right, so deep breath. Okay, rear-mounted 50 caliber machine gun replaced the rear grapple launcher. Twin 7.62 millimeter machine guns, twin Stinger missile launchers, twin high-powered lasers. I'm seeing a theme here, and an infrared upgrade for the probe. Season 3 brought them a Bolo net launcher. I think we're going back into the Middle Ages there, but
Do we
and
have
a flamethrower.
Fire!
What?
Do we have a mace on a chain? Do we have a crossbow?
Right. That would have been awesome.
It would have been. It was so time consuming though. Oh damn! There goes another one.
Gotta reload.
How about a catapult?
Wait. Catapult. Yes, they do have a flamethrower.
True.
That's what every teenage boy needs. And some adults. Dave. Anyway, all right, season 4, almost there. Spoilers, already said that. After destroying the car in Season 3, the Viper GTS took over the mantle. With its previous gadgets came also a new hovercraft mode. Torpedo launchers deployed from front fenders in hover mode only. And here's where the one gadget only type things comes in. Well, there was a rear-mounted bomb launcher, a cloaking device, which was only used in 2 episodes, and manual overdrive and traction control, which were never used. And last but not least, everybody now sing it with me. And a partridge in a pear tree.
The cloak itself. So you can see that they were desperately trying to save the show in the 4th season by adding a whole new mode for the Viper and these new gadgets.
Yes.
I want to know if Chrysler was paying for part of the show. Because you and I know both that these syndicated shows were always really low budget. Because even with Hercules, those special effects were just like, oh, were these made out of kids out of high school training with CGI program for the first time? I mean, they were awful.
Right.
And, Viper, by this time, the ratings had gone down somewhat. So I'm curious if Chrysler paid part of the production cost, because Viper does not bore you. There is hardly an episode that just like, oh, that was dull, nothing happened. Tons of effects, right. Tons of action, and I'm guessing that that's what they did. They probably paid for part of the show as a promotion. It's like, well, we could pay for commercials or pay for part of this.
Everything I read made me, but at least for first season, or at least for the pilot, I don't know if it went beyond that or not, but everything I read seems to lean towards Chrysler actually backed it, but I can't find any hard, concrete evidence stating that fact. Yeah. So,
plus, it wasn't big international hits, so maybe that's part of it. I mean, some shows like Baywatch, they did okay in America, but overseas, holy shnikes, it's no wonder they had so much money to throw around for 12 models per episode. But some of the syndicated shows we watched, and nothing happens. There was a TV show we were going to do on this called Cobra, which the vehicle's amazing, and I like Michael Dudikoff, but I got to tell you, every single episode, nothing happens. Nothing ever happens.
You fast forward to the parts where the car peels out. And
and that's it. And, Viper does reuse some special effects. I've seen, I'll watch an episode, I go, oh, they reused that 12 episodes ago. And that's kind of par for the course, actually, with a special effects show. Don't tell me that one of the greatest sci-fi shows of all time, Star Trek, didn't reuse special effects.
Right. I mean, it gets pricey after a while.
Yeah. The TV show V, the last 2 episodes of the first season, I swear, every single special effects shot is from the miniseries 2 years earlier.
The miniseries, okay, you lost me there. The V, the original, or?
Well, there's 2 miniseries for V. There's the first one, and then there's the Final Battle, which is a lie, because then there was a television series which lasted 18 episodes, and the last 3 episodes, by then, there's no money left whatsoever. They fired most of the cast or killed them off, and all the special effects are reused from the movie.
That's right.
And I'm like, oh, I love this show. What the hell happened?
Right. Okay, I forgot about that. I remember watching that when it came out, but...
Yeah, I was a bit obsessed with it. I'm a little obsessed. I'm a V-head.
Yeah, apparently I'm not as obsessed.
Yes, I had the comic books, one of the toys, I had the books. There was novelizations. There was like 20 books that were based on the series. And they're amazing. They're all so beautiful and wonderful. No real merchandising for Viper. Nowhere can I find. Do they make toys of it or comic? I feel like there was a DC comic book of Viper though, like the miniseries, but no video games. It seems like they would have. Now you said you played a Viper in a video game, but not this Viper, like the normal one, right?
Yeah, normal Viper. Yeah, there was a couple out. There's like a Tyco RC car I'm seeing right now, for the Viper series.
Oh, okay.
So there was a few toys out there.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure there was a miniseries from DC Comics. But other than that, not a lot of merch. Even though the show seems to be fondly remembered. If I bring it up to people, they're like, "Oh yeah, I like that show." You know, I remember you and I used to watch this on the weekends during college. You know, if you, I hated playing football. You didn't mind it, but you didn't always go play football. So we find ourselves like on the Saturday board watching like syndicated TV shows like Viper and Hercules and stuff like that.
Hercules. I remember watching every episode of Hercules at least twice. And when Bruce Campbell came on the scene, you know, you can't miss those.
Yeah, no kidding. I had to watch those. Because we were fans of Bruce Campbell before he was even really a thing, because most people didn't know who he was until, like, Burn Notice.
Right. That's sad. That's really sad.
Yeah. You've never heard of Briscoe County Jr.?
Right? I still need to get my hands on that.
All right, so yeah, I'm looking right here. DC Comics did do a miniseries for Viper. I should go find that, see if it's any good. So this brings us to the end of this episode. Check us out on Facebook under Full Throttle Podcast. You can find news on all sorts of like vehicle stuff and old articles, you know, promotional stuff, and every single episode of our show. Now, here's the thing: is we're coming to the end of the show. We have one episode left where we're going to discuss TV shows. It's the 50th anniversary of the Monkees, and I'm going to go see them in a couple weeks. Go see them live, even though there's only 2 of the 4 left. But we'll discuss the Monkees TV show and their cool car, and I Spy. Damn it, what's the show I'm thinking? It completely. Oh, Get Smart. Get Smart had a really cool vehicle, and that'll be another mini-sode. And then we'll discuss. What do you think? We should discuss maybe the Fast and Furious movies and a couple of the cars.
A couple of the cars.
Well, we can't discuss every car because that would be 18
sure.
episodes. We'll discuss the 2.
That'd be a haul next year.
We'll discuss the most pivotal ones. Okay.
That'll work.
All
right.
So we have that. We have a trucker episode we want to do. I want to talk about Black Dog and Convoy and stuff like that. And then probably end the series, I'm thinking maybe with Cannonball Run, Speed Zone, the trilogy. Ooh. A lot of people don't know that. Right now I'm probably blowing their mind. Speed Zone is actually Cannonball Run 3, but it wasn't sold that way in America. I don't know why.
Me likey.
Yeah, I can't think of any other car. Maybe, hey, what about Gone in 60 Seconds? And how about Vanishing Point?
Can we compare the 2 Gone in 60s?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. All right, so awkward silence for a moment. I don't know what to say. Yeah, so Viper, DC Comics, 4-issue miniseries, 1995. Oh, Bill Sienkiewicz, nice. I like Bill.
I got some. Okay, go ahead.
I was done. I was just kind of meandering.
That was one thing I wanted to touch on was the music.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like in particular, Eddie Jobson. Does that name sound familiar at all?
No. Why? What is it?
I say if you're a big music fan from like the like late 60s. Is it 60s? No, Jay Ferguson. That was the other guy.
No, Jay
70s
Ferguson,
and 80s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s, I think, is when Eddie Jobson was. He was actually part of several progressive rock bands, like Frank Zappa, Jethro Tull, and the group Yes for a really short stint, among some others. But I was looking him up to get some ideas other things he may have done. He scored episodes, like 100 and some episodes of Nash Bridges, so he's still obviously busy.
Which we discussed on this show, Nash Bridges.
Yeah.
My voice cracked like Peter Brady. Hey guys.
I can't verify this or not, but on the YouTube video I found of him, it's the video called "Turn It Over." It states that in '83 it was the first MTV video, back when MTV was actually music television.
We were discussing that recently. It's like, when's the last time they played these damn videos?
I don't know, man. But essentially, this they say that this was the first MTV video to feature CGI in it.
Nice. Which one again?
It's called "Turn It Over." Just look up Eddie Jobson -Turn It Over -MT3 MTV 1983, and you'll get a nice dose of 80s nostalgia there.
Nice.
It's really good. But Jay Ferguson's another good one to look up. I don't know how many people other than our parents would know who Spirit is.
No, I don't.
We'll let you guys look them up on your own. They're good, but we'll leave it at that. Anyway, he did. I guess Eddie Jobson did the first season only for the pilot first season, and then Jay Ferguson took over for the rest of the seasons.
Yeah, Jay Ferguson's a name you see a lot in these kind of TV shows.
Yes.
He did a ton of them.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nice.
Yeah. NCIS, The Office. Yeah. Anyway, all right. I just wanted to touch on that before we left.
Okay.
That's all I got on that.
That's all right. All right, everybody, that is it for us here. Time to say goodbye, Ron.
Goodbye, Ron. I mean, Mike.
Oh, that's the best. All right, everybody, have a good night.
Take it easy.